الحمد لله رب العالمين نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا أما بعد. Dear respected brothers and sisters, ulama kareem, respected muallimun, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to everybody this evening, wherever you may be in the UK or in the world. Alhamdulillah, it's a great pleasure of mine, alhamdulillah, an honor to be sharing this platform with you, inshallah ta'ala, tonight from the comforts of my home, which is actually still under renovation. So I'm, if you see anything falling in the background, that's because it's a job half done at the moment. So I thought this would be a best place to, inshallah, fill the house with the barakah, be able to share something, a topic that's very, very close to my heart and no doubt close to your heart. And it's a topic actually that's very, very important for the needs of our time. If we look at the condition of the Muslim Ummah, and I think the world in general, we can refer to it as the Muslim Ummah, and we can understand it from, our nearest and dearest. But in the scheme of things, this topic of character building, of education, of human development, I think this is a common concern that is shared across the wider communities, whether it's faith or no faith. It's a universal challenge, it's a universal dilemma and a problem for many, many, many educators, parents, and even states, governments. How do we get the best out of our children? How do we get the best out of our young generations? How do we nurture the young generations to become the beacons and the change makers of society? So this is a really important topic, inshallah. So firstly, I will start with my introduction briefly to myself. My name is Waquas Ali. I am an educational strategist or a consultant to a number of organizations in the UK and abroad, globally. It's basically, I look at the philosophy of education, and I look at strategy. But quite importantly, I think more importantly than those two things, I look at the needs of the child and the needs or the dilemmas of the adult, be that the parent or the teacher. And it's looking with a strategic head or a strategic eye to see how we could get the best out of our efforts in terms of the hours that we put in, the resources that we put together. And it's really looking to work smart and effectively. And that's my background. That's what I specialize in. That's what I've been specializing in for the last 15 or more years, in terms of community engagement and looking at the grassroots, how to get the top and the bottom aligned. And that's really a little bit of a background to myself. I'm involved with a number of organizations, an advisor to various different levels of influences, of institutes that are centered around education. Alhamdulillah, it's a privilege, it's an honor to have that. And that's really my way of paying a little bit of a debt back to the people that I owe it to, that have been part of my development. So inshallah, I don't want to speak too much about myself. I will try to refer to the life experiences that I've had, both personally and professionally, so that I could, inshallah, add value to this topic for you. And any particular organizations that I am affiliated with, my views on this presentation are personal. They're my views. They're not representative of any particular organization, not Balagh, or any of the representatives or speakers that share this platform with Balagh. I'm here for really myself and speaking on behalf of myself, not with any affiliated organization, inshallah. That said, inshallah, I would like to get started with the presentation, because it is it's late here. It's past 8:30 here. Now we are between Maghrib and Isha. So I want to just really start with the presentation. It's a long way to go, inshallah. The Isha Salah, I would firstly start with Isha Salah here in the UK is on, we're here about another 1 hour, 15 minutes, I think. We have even probably less than that if I just look at my watch. We are about an hour away. So it's quite a heavy topic. And I'm going to try my best to, inshallah ta'ala, try to not overload you with lots of information. There's a lot of, I'm still here after the webinar, you know, I'm still here. So if you, in terms of want to get in touch and you want to see a lot of the strategies that I'm about to present tonight on this topic in detail, in flesh, then alhamdulillah, you know, that's not a problem. That's what we live by, and that's how you will better understand this, is once you actually start practicing some of the strategies and with your own children, inshallah ta'ala, like I am doing here right now. You can't see my son, who's 8 years old. He's in the background over there. So if it's okay with you, I would actually like to call Musa, because he's given up his evening to come and volunteer. He wants to be a cameraman. He's already a vlogger. Come in, Musa. Just give salam to everybody.
Assalamualaikum, everybody.
That's Musa. Okay, he's a cameraman. So he said, Dad, could I volunteer tonight? And I said, well, there's no wages. I can't pay any wages because it's pandemic and we're struggling financially. But yeah, if you want to volunteer, that's a beautiful word. For people like myself in organizations, we look for volunteers like Musa. So I've got my son sitting at the back, and this is quite key, actually. Part of what I'm going to demonstrate tonight about the tarbiyyah of our children and their involvement in this. So that's a big shout out to my boy Musa over there, mashallah. By the time we finish, he's probably going to fall asleep. Back to Isha, I think it'll probably be about 9:45. If the admin and the management are okay, if you want to stop at 9:45, take a break for 15 minutes, come back again for Q&A. I would like for everybody on here, now there's something much like 75 participants who are joining in, and no doubt there's plenty more. My phone is buzzing with people trying to log in, and they don't really have access to Zoom or know how to do it. So I would like to see all 74, 75 people, hopefully, and more, try to see it towards the end. And if that means we can go to 9:45, we can push it to 10, I'll let the admin decide that. But we will have Q&A, and it'll be interactive as much as we can, inshallah ta'ala, along the way. So it's not just me talking and you listening. I'm just very conscious it's a late night, inshallah. Okay, so if everybody's ready to crack on, here we go. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'm going to start with these two here, inshallah, this slide here. So I would like to see, I'm just going to try to see if I can get the chat to come up. Okay, so if I can, and sorry, you have to excuse the bell over in the background. It's, as I said, I'm just in the middle of, so we got chat up here. I can't see some of the comments, unfortunately, but nonetheless, you can hear me. So what do these items all have in common? If you could just have a look, and this is just to break the ice a little bit with you, before we get into this topic of values education or values-driven tarbiyyah. What do these items all have in common? We've got lemons, we've got a stick, wooden stick, we've got an egg, and we've got, that looks like a jug of juice. It's a juice jug. I think it's got lemonade in there. So anybody who wants to shout to me, inshallah, if you've got any comments coming through, I'm going to try to see your comments, actually. So if you could just, here we go. Okay. Okay. So anybody got comments? What do these items have what do they have all in common? So someone is saying food, items from the kitchen, they nourish a person, including the pen. That's interesting. Okay, so keep them coming, keep your comments coming. I'm just trying to get you involved, inshallah, in this, but in a wise way, because you'll see the underlying message behind this. They're all, they all break, okay? Yeah, yeah, they do break. Immunity boosters, I like that. Acid. Okay, if I carry on listening and watching to your message, I think I'll just end up laughing all night, and that's not going to happen already. Commonly found items. Okay, I'm going to come back to that while your brain is thinking about what these items all have in common. I hope, Musa, in the corner, you're also thinking, what do these four items have in common? Don't shout the answer out, because I think I know you know it. We've done this so many times as a family. Okay, moving on, inshallah. So I would like to now basically, sorry. Okay, the focal points of this webinar are namely five. I think there's five main things that I thought about when I spoke to the Balagh team about what we could share with my experience and my background, and particularly with this platform about the number of parents and the teachers that we have. By the way, I think before I start, that would be a very key point actually, to know who am I talking to. It's a bit unfair here because you can see me, you can hear me, I can't see you guys. I might hear one or two of you later. But it might be interesting to, if you just share as well as your answers to the riddle that we got at the beginning, or the icebreaker. What's your backgrounds? Are you students of knowledge? Are you maktab teachers? Which part of the world are you coming from? And also whether you're a parent or a maktab. I've based it for educators, but it'd be nice to know from the comment section, inshallah, what the background is of the people that are there, inshallah, if that's okay. So focal points of this webinar, folks, is namely 5. Let me just quickly rattle those off because I really want to get into it. Firstly, we look at what is actually character. I know that sounds like such an easy thing, but you'll be surprised how many people actually quite mistaken with character and other things around it. So we've got character and values education. What is it? More importantly, why does it actually matter to those people on the front line, be that the parents or the teachers or the maktab teachers or madrasa teachers, who are concerned with the forming of a Muslim identity? So why does character and values education really matter in this day and age around Muslim identity formation? Number 1. Number 2, we're going to look at the notion of actually developing the whole child. You might have heard of this as holistic Tarbiyyah being thrown around, the whole child, and what does that actually mean? So again, I'm pitching this, guys, at the middle level. I appreciate if there's philosophers on this forum, or academics, or mashallah educationalists. Bear with me on this. I'm pitching this in a way that if you know already, inshallah, maybe this will help you think anew. No doubt, I would love to hear for you guys to chip in, contribute your ideas. This is a two-way process. For those who are probably getting an introduction to this or a deeper understanding into this, I'm going to really be touching upon a lot of concepts and not going into too much detail. So I'm not going to be pitching it too scriptural, because I don't think everybody on here is going to be a scholar, an alim, and also I'm not going to make it too academic, even though these are two areas that this presentation deserves to go down in depth. And I would love to have the time to do that. But this, I've kept it very basic at this stage, inshallah. There will be further opportunities in the future, bi'idhnillah, to be able to pick these up and explore them in more depth. So not too academic, not too scholarly or technical. I'm going to try to keep it, and I'm hopefully trying to get to practical level. So the notion of developing the whole child. Number 3, how can we make learning stick, retain information, and in fact move away from information and become more transformational? Number 3. Number 4, I would like to get to as quick as possible by the end of this evening to look at practical ways, so looking at real flash solutions where you can basically, as parents or educators in the classrooms out in this pandemic or outside of this pandemic, can nurture the character, the values and skills of children in the classroom, or if you're a parent, which is probably the short-term thing, at home. And then I would also like to touch upon the kind of support that's available, resources. MashaAllah, tabarakallah, honestly, it's amazing that how behind the scenes, the different curriculum providers and people who are in Islamic education are starting to come together and rise in the different countries, and particularly here in the UK, mashallah, we in the last 5 years, 10 years have really picked up. And it's great to see that. It's very healthy. So there's a lot of help that's available, and I would like to just signpost one area where I'm particularly involved in, and I can definitely vouch for, but that's not the only area, and that will help parents or educators build character, values and skills in the children. So these are the 5 areas. Coming back to your this over here. So what did we have? We had, let's have a look. So I'm looking now. Bear with me. Okay. I had the chat and I've just lost it all of a sudden. Bear with me. Here we go. Okay. So I can't see the chat anymore. Sorry, folks, about this. I am a technophobe. I would like to admit that up front. It's only my second, third webinar. So unfortunately, I had the chat and I, for some reason, can't see it anymore. Okay, unfortunately, I'm not going to get to see your answers, but if I move on because of the light of time, oh, here we go. Sorry, it's there. We have people who, mashallah, I'm getting lots and lots of, okay, the color yellow is coming up. That's a common thing between them. I'm getting, they're all natural. They're all part of something. They're beneficial depending on how they are used. Yeah, so I can see, okay, I can see that different answers are coming about these. Okay, so the thing about these things in common, if you just break the ice and move on, inshallah, is that firstly, you might have heard of the saying that when life throws you lemons, you know, you make, Musa? Lemonade. Okay, so when life throws you lemons, you make lemonade. So what does that mean? Here we go. So what does that mean? What does, when life throws you lemons, you make lemonade? What does all of that mean? So that's one thing that we can look at. And really what that is about is actually your attitude, how you see things bad. You know, you basically bring them into a positive meaning. So lemons are bitter, and from that we can squeeze it into something that's more useful and sweet, which is lemonade. I think all of us like lemonade. So it's taking something bitter and putting it to sweetness. That's what I had in mind with the first two pictures on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, you had a stick, or for those people from the subcontinent communities in Pakistan and Bangladesh, this is known as a danda. Okay, and this is the one underneath is known as a anda, right? Thank you, Musa. So we have an anda and a danda here, and what's the connection between this and then over that and then to the topic? When I was traveling in northwest Pakistan in my early, you know, sort of youth, I was just backpacking and I was traveling into the mountains. I remember seeing a little boy who was in the near Kashmir, and he was maybe 8 years old, the same age as my little boy Musa, wrapped up very cold in the snow-capped mountains. And he was selling boiled eggs. And I remember what he said in Urdu, which really gripped me and it stuck with me all this time. And when I was thinking of this topic of character education, right? Or when I saw the English version of when life throws you lemons, you make lemonade. I actually thought of the little boy that, you know, nobody knows about. I didn't even catch his name. And he went around to grab everybody's attention with this notion, with this statement. And it was captivating. He said in Urdu, forgive me for those who don't speak Urdu, I'll translate. He said, "Jo danda de, usko anda do." Okay, so "Jo danda de, usko anda do." What that means, I won't try to describe it in the same English, plain English, because it wouldn't make sense in English. Anything translated foreign into English just doesn't make sense, especially as a poetic language, Arabic or Farsi or Urdu. Those who are very brutal to you with, you know, those who are bad to you, just return a good to them. So whoever gives you a steak, give him an egg. See, I told you it doesn't make sense. And really what this is about is, honestly, it's about having an attitude or character, values that are basically positive. And this is where I would like to, inshallah, crack open the agenda for this evening. I've split this into 4 parts for you folks. Number one, you can see on this side over here, hopefully you can see from my cursor, this side over here is, this side over here is about, first part, inshallah, I would like to do this in about 10 or 12 minutes. And then thereafter, after the first part, I'd like to have a Q&A. That's what the boxes in the middle are about. But if you can take 1 or 2 questions, and if I could ask you, brothers and sisters, to keep the questions relevant to the particular topic or the particular segment of the presentation, that would be very helpful for me to stay very focused in this intense schedule and, you know, and the timeline I have to get before 10 o'clock for Isha. There will be a chance to have Q&A afterwards, and also, inshallah, to keep in touch for anything more detailed. So the first thing is we will look at the notion of character education, values-driven Tarbiyyah. Why does it matter? We'll take 1 or 2 questions, and then we'll move on to part 2, which is really about transformational learning and looking at the whole child, as I mentioned. Again, 1 or 2 questions, and then I would like to focus on the practical stuff. So the top half, part 1 and 2, is really theory and abstract stuff, philosophies and strategies. I really want to get into the strategies, which is basically 6 tips to help the parents nurture values and character education. And this is really important because I've not plucked this from thin air, and I'm not someone who's speaking to you who isn't struggling as a parent. And more importantly, I'm actually basing this on the conversations, hundreds and hundreds of conversations or pilots and field studies that I've been conducting over the last 15 years in this particular area of Islamic education or community engagement. And a lot of parents approach me with these dilemmas that they have with the children. So I'd like to just focus on some of the 6 sort of core areas that I think that we need to be focusing on during this pandemic that are relevant, that are important, and inshallah we can take from there. And then obviously I would like to move into, hopefully before the Isha break, on resources and support, signpost you to I think a fantastic organization in an area which is mashallah being developed and is doing well, and other resources and support services that we can get to help you get started. And now in this pandemic is the best time to do that. It's the best time to reflect on your style as a parent or an educator. I can see from the comments we have a combination of people, students, teachers, we have parents, lots of parents. And I think the important thing here, my brothers and sisters, is this: whilst I recognize that not every teacher is a parent, it is true that every parent is a natural teacher, a murabbi. And that's really interesting. I think that's something that I'm going to speak on, inshallah. So we've all got a parenting style. I guess there's always a teaching style to us. Now, this seminar or webinar, I think is really important because when I hear lots of parents contacting me, and I've been watching the social media actively, for the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, this is something that's commonly coming up. And this is a common question that I get from parents and from teachers. How do I keep kids or students occupied? Keep kids occupied this lockdown, during this lockdown? How can I keep the kids occupied during this lockdown? And I've highlighted the word occupied in red because that really annoys me, right? Because we're locked in our houses. Occupation is what's happening in Gaza, or it's in Kashmir. You can see what real occupation looks like. It's not very, very nice. It's closed doors and closed spaces, and there's not much room for growth. And this thing about keeping the kids further occupied in a lockdown, I think is a disaster. I think it's a disaster thinking. I think it's something that we need to, what we call in management terms, apply the pink bat thinking, which means smash this up with a pink bat and basically change the question around. Rather than keeping kids occupied for the sake of keeping occupied so we can basically do other things as adults, I think we need to change the mindset a little bit here, which is we've got a unique opportunity, brothers and sisters, in front of us to do the things that we always dreamt of doing with our children or our students, right? Spend time, be present in the moment. Teach them the things or show them the things, make the things that we had on our bucket list, or we always want to do, but because of the 9 to 5 or 9 to 9, if you're in my field, it's. And I'm saying this for myself. My son is sat at the back. He's got a lot of things he wants me to do, and I can't wait to take a break from webinars to be able to start, doing the second half of the list that I'm really itching to do. I mean, we've already done half of it, and it's been amazing. So I'd like to change the thinking here. And I thought to myself, look, if I was sitting here, what would I do in terms of, rather than keeping the kids occupied, I've got an opportunity in front of them. So you might, at this point, have your vision of, do you want to just keep your kids occupied for the sake of keeping them occupied? Or do you want to actually do something in this moment right now, which is a historic moment? It's unprecedented. It's never happened before. Inshallah, we don't have to live through, the rest of our lives, another episode like this. But at this moment in time, right now, the 15th of April, we are here in the run-up to less than 10 days to Ramadan. We are here with our children, 3 weeks into it. We are locked down with our children at home. And how many of us see that as a problem or suffocation? How many of us see that as an opportunity or a blessing? How many of us actually take that, embrace that, and do something positive with that? And I think this is really, really important. I look forward to every morning waking up with my children and thinking, right, the busy life that I had, the absent father that I was, this is the time I've been dreaming of. And so I thought about it and I put something down. I thought, right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to nurture the whole child. I have 3 children, alhamdulillah. I'm going to nurture all 3 of them holistically to learn and practice the whole deen. Because ultimately, if I'm going to die in 3 weeks' time, I want to die with something that I can and they can be proud of, that I died completing a mission. And what's the best mission right now for me is to give them the tarbiyyah, holistic tarbiyyah, not just about the intellectual development that they get in schools, academic attainment, you know, technical stuff, not just to learn in theory, but to also practice. And what kind of things do we really want to learn? Well, the whole deen is there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has completed the whole deen for us. And the whole deen covers everything, like the secular, the non, you know, the traditional stuff. It's all in the deen. And I'm going to demonstrate to you now, inshallah, what I mean by that. So I looked at these, this statement and I thought, okay, this is what I would like to do. And by all means, you also have your opportunity. Tonight, you know, think that I'm not going to just keep my kids or my students occupied for the sake of occupation. They're already occupied. We're already occupied, locked into our homes as prisoners. You know, if that's how people want to perceive it, right? But you think of your own state. What would you like to make of this opportunity for your children, that when we're inshallah ta'ala, when we're out of this, right? What will your children remember this period for? What will they remember, you know, what happened? What will the children in our families, when they grow through their teenage years, if they're young or if they're teenagers now, when they get to adult level, adulthood, what do they want to look back at? The summer of 2020, okay, or the spring of 2020. What happened? What did my mom and dad do? The world was on fire, but my mom and dad, you know what? They made learning fun. They made family time fun, okay? And we did the things that, you know what, we never used to do. And inshallah ta'ala, this will be our training ground to realize what the most important things in our life are, as opposed to, you know, deprioritizing the most important things. And I've come up with a statement. You can come up with your own by all means. So I looked at 4 or 5 things I just want to highlight very quickly and move on. I want to look at nurture in Islamic terms. We call that as tarbiyyah. I've spoken about the whole child. Learning and practice, ilm and amal, right? These 2 things are twins of the faith. They are sisters, if you want it, rooted in the same words. And there's a connection between why we learn and what we do with that. Ilm and amal, knowledge and action, learning and practice, or practicing what we learn. And then there's the whole concept of the whole deen. And you'll see why I'm stressing on these words as we move along. So really from here, we can very quickly draw out 2 things. The what and how of Islamic education, dear respected brothers and sisters. What and how of Islamic education. And on the what side, you know, what do we develop as educators, as parents? There's a whole deen and there's a whole child. I'm going to focus on those 2 areas coming up in this presentation. And then there's the how of Islamic education. How can we, as educators, facilitate learning? And that really is going to boil down to 2 things. Nurturing, nourishing, cultivating, other words, tarbiyyah. And then what do we do with the objective of our learning? So we learn for what reason? And we learn to practice. And as you're going to see, the best way to, if that's the objective, I think everybody here would agree that the objective of learning is so that we can become people of action, substance, practice, application. Well, folks, the best way to, if you're going to learn to practice, the best way is through practice. And this is going to become a critical review on our Islamic education systems. It can act as a critique. I've got the best intentions, inshallah ta'ala, to reform our systems, our institutes, our syllabi. But I'm saying that as a constructive, and this is really about constructive thought, inshallah ta'ala. So it's a what and how. What I don't want to do, folks, and I'm sure you've all been to quite a few lengthy conferences, training programs where we talk about the what and the why of Islamic education, or what and why of character. Mashallah, you know, our deen is full of knowledge and full of libraries and books and PhDs. That's great. I don't want to spend too much time on what and why, because I'm talking to the preacher, I'm preaching to the converted here, because you're sitting here at, what time are we on now? 9:10, mashallah, you know, on a beautiful evening in British summertime now, I think it is. So I'm preaching to converted. I want to be able to move into the practical tips. And inshallah ta'ala, the intention is that you will take lots of strategies away. So here's a bit of an icebreaker for those of you who are familiar with these terms. What's the difference, or what are the differences or similarities between these three terms? I just want to get I want to gauge the interest to see what level people are familiar with in terms of Islamic education concepts. Tarbiyyah, ta'aleem, and ta'deeb. So, excuse me. Tarbiyyah, ta'aleem, and ta'deeb, in terms of what do you understand by these three topics or three notions? If you can look at the different similarities, just send in your answers. I'm looking at the Q&A, and inshallah I will refer back to them because they're coming up. So we have some comments coming in already. Fantastic. Okay. So, brothers and sisters, the first thing I said I will look at was the whole deen. Then I will go in and move into aspects of Tarbiyyah, and then we'll come into looking at developing the whole child. So I'm going to look at these two things here. The first thing I'm going to look at is this section on my left, possibly your right, I think. What do we develop? The whole deen and the whole child. Then, inshallah, I will move into, well, actually, I will look into, it won't be in a specific order. I look at whole deen, I look at nurturing, I look at the whole child, and then we move to learning to practice, inshallah. So here we go, folks. We have, here we go. So what are people saying? What are people saying? Tarbiyyah from the parenting perspective, taking the child stage by stage to their ultimate fruition. It's going too fast for me. Oh, okay. Ta'deeb is the training and discipline. Fantastic. So moral disciplining. Fantastic. Tarbiyyah is training development of the whole child. Ta'aleem is teaching knowledge or transmission of information. And ta'deeb is character development. Interesting. Interesting. Ta'deeb is character development. I'm going to come on to that. So keep them coming. In terms of the whole deen, folks, now, for those of you who are ulama, mashallah, you will know this codification, that, in fact, this came from Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanwi, rahimahullah, who basically codified and simplified the word deen, or the concept of deen, into sort of two particular areas, but 5 strands, which I'll come on to now. I've got a framework here to really simplify something that honestly people at a scholarly level probably do this later years of life. Through a program that I'm involved in, we've started this very early with 7-year-olds, starting to break their understanding of Islam being just a religion. And by religion, I mean the left-hand side there, which is to do with the rights of God, i.e. you just have beliefs in creedal matters, you know that there's a God, you believe in heaven and hell, and you worship him through salah and the basic 5 pillars, okay? That's the basic understanding. But what we try to do in a couple of programs is try to get children very early on to understand that that's a religion, and Islam is not just a mere religion of do's and don'ts and a cold relationship with God. You can find lots of them. But basically, this is actually a way of life. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has referred to it as, deen. And deen is not translated as religion. It's a way of life. Alhamdulillah, a Mubarak way of life. Okay? Yes, there's do's and don'ts, but there's many things in there that are not really done justice by calling it a religion of just between me and God. It's also to do with me and God's creation. So we have 2 concepts here, which is under deen really can be broken down into hukuk Allah and hukuk al-ibad. Okay? Hukuk Allah is basically the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and God, the creator. And then hukuk al-ibad is basically the rights of his creation. Okay, that includes the haywan, the animals, the environment, people, neighbors, friend, foe, families, elderly, employers. There's lots of things out there. So what we need to understand when we talk about the whole deen is if we look at this concept here, we basically realize there's 2 main sort of pillars here. One is that you have belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I think Dr. Rafaq was talking a couple of weeks ago, a seminar I think I tuned into briefly, and he was talking about the importance of Iman, right at the root of our makatib. And that's important because that's really what fuels beliefs, is that we have beliefs, but we have to have Iman in them, conviction in them. So we have a aqaid, of which you can see over here under Hukuk Allah. When you have a belief in the creator and something greater than what the eyes can see. You believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you believe in the books, you believe in the messenger, you believe in the heaven and hell, you believe in all of the principles and the pillars, the articles of faith. Then you learn about ibadat and ritual worship. What we see, brothers and sisters, is that if we look at our education system and our syllabi, and a lot of our tarbiyyah at home, it's really around ta'aleem of these things, education, information, and facts, and sort of knowledge, that we spend a lot of time on this side of the diagram here. But if you speak to the ulama and the scholars, 2/3 of deen, the majority of deen, at least 2/3, 3 of the 4 books of Hidayah are basically pertaining not to this area on hukuk Allah, but actually to do with hukuk al-ibad, the rights of God's creation. So here we now have, alongside aqaid, we have akhlaq, character, and these are really dimensions or spiritual dimensions, inner dimensions that we have. These are inner, intrinsic things, not extrinsic. And this is a key point I want to mention at this point very quickly before we move on, is that akhlaq is inner, it's intrinsic, it's virtues, what we call character traits, or virtues in the right terminology, that are intrinsic. The manifestation of the akhlaq comes into etiquettes, into behavior, into how interactions in our society, or into our ethics of how we deal with our money, or how we basically spend our money or deal with our money in financial literacy terms. And when you have akhlaq there, it feeds into mu'asharat and mu'amalat. Just to point out, that's not the correct term translation for mu'asharat. Mu'asharat is really about referring to social interactions. I'd call it social responsibility here for argument's sake, just to make it easy and fit into the framework that I'm trying to develop here. So these are the 5 strands, brothers and sisters, that we have to look at of understanding deen. Now, if you understand this picture, now we can start to reflect on our style, where our time is spent, right? Are we spending 80% of our time on this, or are we spending 20% of our time on this? Because really, this is a big picture. If you want to understand deen and Islam, it's much more than just the basic pillars of salah. Although salah is very, very fundamental and important, but it's not the be-all and the end-all of deen. And we need to present Islam or represent Islam as a way of life and not a religion. So I don't want to spend too much time on that, because the graphic is quite self-explanatory, and we've simplified this over the years. And alhamdulillah, I would love to show you children from the age of 7 understanding deen, hukuk Allah, hukuk al-ibad, and being able to articulate that in their beautiful, creative ways at the age of 7. And I have so many testimonials to share with you, so I will move on, inshallah. So when I say the whole deen, this is what we're referring to as the main things. These are the main things that we're talking about. Others can argue that maybe 1 or 2 other things that need to be added into this, and therefore that's fine. But this is the main thing that we understand by deen. I want to just very quickly touch on the definition of character. As I mentioned, Jubilee Center for Character and Virtues in Birmingham. Alhamdulillah, we're very blessed to have an organization like this here in the United Kingdom. Define character as a set of personal traits or dispositions that produce, specific sort of emotions or moral emotions that inform judgment and guide conduct. Okay, so basically this is what real character means. And the most important thing here, brothers and sisters, is that actually it's intrinsic, not extrinsic as well. Well, it's mainly intrinsic, it's internal, implicit and explicit. It's intrinsic stuff that we talk about, which we'll come on to. Things like honesty. Okay, you're gonna see here things like resilience, things like love. Okay, the manifestation of these character strengths or virtues we can see outwardly in how we demonstrate our love through a gift, or how we demonstrate resilience when we stand up to hardship. These are the manifestations of what lead to behavior, but the intrinsic thing that we are referring to, i.e. the character traits or virtues, are actually these things which are hidden. And these are the things that we need to nurture in our children. If we're not aware of them and we have them back to front, we will not know, what to nurture and what went right or what went wrong. We will try to always change the behavior, and this is what I've seen with a lot of educators, is they try to criticize or they try to analyze the behavior of a child or an adult, whether you're looking at a child at a school or an adult in, in the workplace. SubhanAllah, you see that people try to look at the behavior and they're trying to understand the behavior and they're trying to change the behavior, but the behavior is connected to something intrinsic, okay? So if this phone is malfunctioning and it's not working, it's not it might not be the screen, the outward stuff. It might be the internal stuff. It might be a battery thing. It might be something that's intrinsic. So we've always got to look at the inner and the outer, and to see where the diagnosis of the behavior or the problem is. What I'd like to touch upon 3 things and move on. Anybody's got any questions, you can pick this up at the end in the interval break. Character education includes activities that help young people develop positive personal traits, right, or strengths, and these are known as virtues. The opposite is true as well, which is the opposite of virtues is vice, or vices, vice that we basically develop in us. So character vice that we might have, for example, we might have jealousy, hasad, or envy, bitterness, okay, stubbornness. We may even have gluttony. These kind of things, you have now a concept of virtue and vice. And character isn't really good or bad. We refer to as, look at that person as good character, that person as bad character. That's fine. But really, technically, what that is actually, that character is strong and this character is weak. Virtues is positive and vice is negative, okay? Strong and weak, positive and negative. So this is character education and looking at those kind of things. And most importantly is that you can't try to teach as a subject. A lot of people try to teach akhlaq as a separate study, and they look at gratitude and look at basically humility. You can, but it's actually more than just teaching as a subject. It actually needs to be embedded in culture. It needs to be modeled. We'll come on to that as functions of how families work. It needs to be done in whole school, in the classroom. It can be taught, it can be sought, it can be caught in the environment, clubs and the community, not just as a subject in the classroom. And also, I think the most important thing, and this is rooted to the Greek philosophers, and we are very grateful for Imam Ghazali, rahimahullah, who basically through his Ihya Ulumuddin has basically taken the best of the Greek sciences and merged it with the Islamic sciences and given us a framework for us to understand the best of sciences available at his time and that are still standing today, informing thinking and critique and critical analysis of sciences of pedagogy and science of human development. So basically what this third point is about, helping children. In other words, character education, folks, is about practical wisdom, right? The Greeks used to call it practical wisdom, which is basically, they used to refer to it as practical wisdom, which is doing the right thing in the right way, in the right moment, at the right time. In other words, right time. So doing the right thing in the right way at the right time. And that's basically how we need to help our children become autonomous learners, independent learners, that they can act without us being present. If we give them the tools of character education and values, scenario-based learning dilemmas, they will, inshallah ta'ala, over time, be able to stand as independent agents who can, apply ethics at a given situation. And they become autonomous through reflection and practice of virtue. They can basically, inshallah ta'ala, do that. This is amazing because behind the scenes, you can't see Musa. He's finally got bored, so he started to do some sit-ups and press-ups. That's amazing. That's exactly what I'm talking about here, is that his character education so far, his character education so far has led him to think that I'm not going to sit here and turn into an icicle. I'm going to basically, I'm going to start doing some physical development while my father carries on. Okay, and this obviously leads to values-driven Tarbiyyah. Again, I'm just conscious of time. So the underlying aim, folks, of values-driven Tarbiyyah is for us to really reflect our learning into deeper things. So not just to know, but to understand, dissect, and reassemble into something that becomes our attitude, like we saw from lemons to lemonade, dunda to unda, right? Is our attitude and behavior reflects our learning. We are then able to contribute to society, be that in good citizenship or ethical practices in our dealings and virtues. This is what values mean. So at this point, it'll be interesting to ask this question. How many of us have a clear idea of a list of values or character strengths? There is a relationship between the two. Character strengths and values. Do we have a clear list? It could be a few, it could be as long as my arm. Do we actually have a clear list of the idea of values, right, for our children, ourselves, our families, in mind when we're trying to do the tarbiyyah of our children? I think that's a question. That's what, you know, that I would love to do a PhD on that to see what kind of people people bring on. Okay, so admin is telling me that the break will be at 9:45 inshallah. So I'm just conscious, folks. It'll be interesting. Does anybody have a list of values? Let me know, inshallah. This will be fantastic to know, or list of traits. Now, very quickly, in models of holistic values driven, there are some amazing models that are emerging, particularly over the last few years. The left-hand side one is the Tarbiyyah project by Dawud Tawhidi, rahimahullah. He passed away a long time ago, an Albanian sheikh, mashallah. And he's one of the pioneers of the Tarbiyyah project who came up with a list of, you know, a framework. You can see there, it's a wheel. And basically he came up with sort of 7 areas of development that he would like, or key learning areas as he called them. You can see it there: spiritual literacy, moral literacy, intellectual literacy, physical, interpersonal, cultural and social. So these are key. He's got quite 7 ones there. Under them, he's got different virtues, values, traits, you know, sort of a breakdown in that. I think that's an amazing contribution by Dawud Tawhidi. When I came across this about 10 years ago, I reached out to him. Unfortunately, I learned the sad news that he passed away a few years prior to that. He developed this a good 10, 15 years ago, I think it was, a lot earlier than that. I think he's been going 2 decades, subhanAllah. The one on the right-hand side is closer to home in UK with my very good friend 𝐁𝐚𝐥𝐚𝐸 and Abu Hanifa Foundation in Blackburn. And they've taken this, I think there's a lot of similarities between the 2 wheels. And it's an adaptation, and it's a very good adaptation, because one of the critical things or critique I had of Dawud Tawhidi's work, and that's one of the reasons why I was reaching out to him, was where is emotional well-being as a standalone emotional well-being? This is critical, and this is going 10 years ago. Now, 10 years on, we can understand the importance of emotional well-being and emotional quotient. EQ is probably 2-3 times more important than IQ these days, intellectual development, because of all the gadgets and because of all the devices and lots of other factors. Emotional well-being of our children and ourselves has become crucially important. But this wheel on the left-hand side was missing that. And so that didn't sit with me too well. So I wanted to reach out to the strategist, the author, researcher. And what you see with Abu Hanifa, what they've done there is that they actually have it here. This section here, they call it emotional literacy, same thing. And basically what you can see, folks, around the wheel is, what I'm trying to get across is that there's virtues and values that are rooted in the Quran and Sunnah. So if anybody was to do a study of the Quran and the Sunnah and root out virtues, I'm sure it's been done. And if it hasn't, that is an amazing idea for any one of us, and I would love to do it. You know, to root out the virtues and the values into a framework of the things that our Islamic education institutes and systems and syllabi, curriculum developers need to be basically developing universally. That would be amazing. Right? At an organization that I'm involved with, not Ilm to Amal, we've started that work about 10 years ago, and a wheel like this is in motion, and a lot of the results are being developed. But we need one that is universal and stands academic and public scrutiny, inshallah ta'ala. Moving on. So I'm not going to go into this because you can find this on the web. So Dawud Tawhidi, the Tarbiyyah project, please have a look at that. It's a very detailed document. I think it's a fantastic contribution, mashallah. I don't think he had the luxury of finishing it before his life ended. You know, I think that was a great shame for us. But nonetheless, he left a great sadaqah jariyah for us to pick up. And on the right, on my right, what you can see here, I think your left, what you can see here is basically adaptation of this and something contemporary that was done a few years ago. By Abu Hanifa Foundation in terms of what we call holistic education. You will see the things I'm talking about, the character traits, the personality traits, the positive traits. You will see values, you will see principles that are rooted in Quran and Sunnah. And these are all universal. They could be applied to any faith community or none. And this is fantastic for us to basically be developing. So what character traits do you want, brothers and sisters, in your children? I'm starting this now because we want to get into actually delivering some of these and, you know, developing them, because we've got a beautiful time on our hand, to an opportunity now on our hand these days to get started. And it doesn't matter if you think you're good or you're not good. The opportunity says get started, and there's nothing better than experiential learning, right? It's doing it and then reflecting. Like I'm doing this webinar now, I'm not an expert on online learning, but I'm going to learn, I'm going to fall, I'm going to get up, I'm going to dust myself off, I'm going to start again. And you guys are going to be very forgiving and very loving and very supportive. And you're going to turn a blind eye to my blunders. If I fall off the chair right now, you're going to forgive me, okay? If the table which the laptop is standing on top of the other table, that's standing on top of the other table, that's standing on top of the yellow pages, collapses, you're going to forgive me, because this is an experience. And alhamdulillah, we do it for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And, you know, we learn, we live by experiences. So what character traits, brothers and sisters, do you want to share with me that you develop in your children? And I want to know, how are you developing them? So that would be really good to know. If I could just bring in the Q&A, let's have a look. What's the brothers and sisters saying? Okay, if it will let me. See, I told you I'm a technophobe. My son is itching to get involved and say, look, I'll show you how to do it, Dad. Okay, so basically, okay, I'll forget it. Sorry, guys. I'll come back in again, inshallah. Oh, sorry, here we go. Here we go. I finally worked it out. Right. Someone saying I can't see the speaker. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I'm here. Trust me, I'm here. Okay, what time is the break again? Oh dear. Okay, so folks, one of humility. Fantastic, thank you, Sister Sarah. Humility is something that you would like to see in your children. How do you go about nurturing humility? How about, for me, while somebody else is going to respond, how about resilience? I think one of the key skills I think about is resilience for a Muslim child living in the present climate, the political, social, cultural climate, even the pandemic now. Really, I think resilience is a key one. I'm going to come on to that. Responsibility, honesty, from Yahya, fantastic. Zed, you said responsibility. My students from Forest Schooling, little Romana and Romaya, Assalamu alaikum, you've just tuned in, mashallah. Fantastic. Compassion, brilliant, brilliant, sister. Okay, integrity, taqwa, aka God consciousness, brilliant, okay? So you can see now some of the qualities that are coming out, right? And it's interesting why you're saying these. But what's more interesting, have you thought about how do we actually get these out from a wish list and bring them into a to-do list? How do we get them actually in front of us? And how do we get them in, more importantly, how do we get them into ourselves and our children? First and foremost, ourselves. Tawakkal Allah, trust in Allah. How do I sabr, patience, right? Treating my children with the same akhlaq I would try to treat adults with, such as asking for forgiveness, maghfirah, and when I'm in the wrong, even though I'm the parent. All right, I get that all the time. My son's looking at me in a very, very funny way at the moment. Social responsibility, brilliant. Abdullahi, okay. Resilience, higher emotional quotient. So emotional intelligence, one of the key skills of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was his emotional intelligence, the soft skills of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that we often miss because we focus on the features of the size of his miswak and the length of his beard and mashallah, all of the things that basically we are attracted to in terms of bodily features. We tend to miss the soft skills of the Prophet ﷺ, the best of mankind that was sent for the hidayah of the ummah. The soft skills we miss of the Prophet ﷺ, and one of them was emotional intelligence. So fantastic response there. Social responsibility, judgment skills, brilliant. Patience, truthfulness, and trustworthiness. There's a difference between the two. Fantastic. So I think we get in a good range, and I'm sure we can carry on listening to. I would love to listen to them. Like I said, this deserves a PhD or a few PhDs to really understand this, and I would love to share at some point with you, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, in the near future, the framework that me and my friends are working on, And inshallah, not only to show you the framework in theory, but also show you the solutions in the flesh. And I know you will be, inshallah, very excited when you see them. They're being tried and tested behind the scenes at the moment. And that will come very, very soon. So coming back to now the question we had about ta'aleem and tarbiyyah and tahdib. Very quickly, folks, this is an important distinction. And again, it deserves a lot of time, and I'm running behind on time. So I've got to be conscious that we are coming up to 10 minutes break, and I've not even gone really past the first part. So if I just show you the difference there, I think you kind of, gauging from the interest, there was some correct answers and some one or two questionable ones. Ta'aleem is to know, learn, inform, in other words, transmission of information. Tarbiyyah is to bring out, upbringing in parenting terms. Cultivating is really what it's about. It's about cultivating and bringing, sort of the conditions around the process of cultivation, or the process of learning and development, in nourishing and nurturing. And Ta'deeb is basically moral discipline to bring in terms of behavior or acts, or in terms of etiquettes, okay? And you can see very quickly from the slide, I'm not going to go into detail, unfortunately, because of time, but that is very self-explanatory. If anybody wants to take a snapshot of that, it's really about the key here is between ta'aleem and tarbiyyah, which is the difference between transmission of information and the transformation of that information, right, in a process. That's the difference between tarbiyyah, and you can look at it. One is holistic, the other one is very much, ta'aleem is about intellectual development. And this brings me on where I want to get on to in terms of, where I would like to take it. But really, it's about bringing it into action, into etiquettes, into values, moral disciplining, living those values. One of the key differences here, when you read a book to your child, and I hope everybody does read with their children, whether it's a child reading or the parent reading to them, we should take turns. When you read a book here, if you look at the bottom point in ta'aleem, is that basically you read books. That's passive learning, by the way, okay? Listening and watching, that's passive learning. We're going to come on to that. That's the difference with that is, that's ta'aleem. But if you look at tarbiyyah, it's about understanding, deeply understanding the books, tearing them apart, dissecting the learning points, having discussions, reflective learning on the concepts that you've looked into the book, and deconstructing them, right? And then reconstructing them into form something, creativity, to form something new. And this is part of tarbiyyah. You can only do that, through exercising, through time. And really, then it leads to living those learning points and those values. And there's another concept, another T, so ta'aleem, tarbiyyah, ta'deeb. There's another concept called tazkiyah, which really means to polish, purify, sanctification, refine. And this is required. You have tazkiyah of the ilm, you have tazkiyah of amal, you have tazkiyah of basically nafs, you have lots of tazkiyah, purification ways. So this is constantly us looking at the things. And the reason why I wanted to basically look at this was for us to understand that ta'aleem and tarbiyyah are two sides of the same coin. It's not really one versus the other. And we need to understand the real significance of the middle one if we want to see our learning translated into practice. If we want to see our learning translated into, so from this, I'm looking at it from my angle, you might see maybe from, I think from yours, this way, from the ta'aleem translating or transforming into amal, into action, we've got to look at the tarbiyyah. And the key thing, somebody mentioned in the comments, the key thing to tarbiyyah is a focus on character. Why? Tahdib, you can see, is basically of the moral disciplining, is leading to etiquettes, is leading to mannerisms, is leading to behavioral output, a manifestation of what's on the inside. This is the outwardly thing. The connection between Tahdib and Tarbiyyah really is down to the character virtues that I was talking about. This is now, you can see the crystallization, that if you focus on the middle, the inner, if you have good Tarbiyyah, your Ta'aleem becomes easy. You don't have to spend 80% of your effort trying to get the child to understand 20% of the concepts. It'll be the other way around. 20% of, if you have good Tarbiyyah, let me explain this in an example. If you have good Tarbiyyah, you will only put 20% of your effort in trying to get them to understand Ta'aleem. They'll do 80% of the work. They'll do everything for you. And alhamdulillah, I do have moments of 20/80 where I put in 20% of my time and energy and brain power. And my children, alhamdulillah, because I'm trying to work on the middle section, I'm not perfect, and believe me, in my house, the other home minister, she's got a different style of doing things. I'm not saying hers is wrong, but I find it counterproductive because I'm trying to focus on the middle. And I'll come on to the differences in the two approaches. So very quickly, folks, if you focus on cultivating the land, i.e. look at it from a farmer's perspective, because that's what Tarbiyyah is best understood as. Analogically, it's best understood as cultivating and the farmer relationship with the plants. A week ago, my Musa came to me and said to me, Dad, look at the plant outside that I've been planting all year round. It was a mint plant, okay? He was trying to grow his own mint. I hope it was mint and nothing else, So basically, he's growing his mint. And wallahi, the plant was, the sapling was up strong and sun was shining on it. He was watering it constantly and it was strong. And I thought, what a great relationship for him to understand, lesson for him to understand Tarbiyyah, that you are the murabbi, the cultivator, and the plant that you are doing that's like, it's your baby, to say. And he looked back at me and said, he smiled because he understood. He's there now smiling. Is this true story? Thank you. You can have your £5 later. Basically, it's a true story because he looked at me and said, oh, so you're trying to tell me that you are the farmer, the parent, and me, the son, or the children, are your plants. And I said, correct. Now you've understood, mashallah, 78-year-old boy has understood the connection between Tarbiyyah, cultivating in the farm, on the farm, and at home in our Islamic education. And the reason why I'm giving you this example is, what will happen if you dive straight into technical knowledge of understanding that, I wake up in March and spring has kicked in. I'm going to sow the seeds for tulips. I want to grow some nice yellow and red tulips on my drive. You get all the technical information of Google. You come in, you know what type of seed, you know when to sow it, you know the soil, you know all those kind of things. You know everything in terms of technical knowledge, but you don't go and do the groundwork. You don't you don't take off the concrete slabs and prepare the soil. You don't look at the type of soil. You don't look at the depth of the soil. And you go and plant your seeds in Josh and passion because you know everything. You can spend as much time as you want. You're not going to get much out of concrete. You've got to cultivate. You've got to get the ground prepared. And this is, brothers and sisters, what we understand by spending a lot of time on Tarbiyyah. So as a father, I've spent here's a trick now, he's standing here and he's listening to me. As a father, I've spent more time on the discussions in the bedroom with my children, when I'm putting them to sleep, on the one-to-one moments, especially when I take them swimming. I'll take them to the side. It's only me and my son, or me and my daughter. And we'll have a one-to-one about the emotional things. I think one of the brothers and sisters mentioned about EQ, emotional quotient. And I'll work on the inside, the inner, the heart. Right? Before I start to develop their mind, I want to work on their heart. And I think this is one of the things I'd like to say that's really important in that example I gave between the adaptation of Dawud Tawhidi's thing about emotional well-being. The Imam Ghazali, rahimahullah, in his Ihya Ulumuddin, when it comes to character education, places the emotional development of humans, adults and children, at the heart of character development. This is critical, the emotional, the heart. And this is in line with the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that in our bodies there's a lump of flesh. If that is correct, everything else will be correct. So my brothers and sisters, emotional well-being, the heart of a human is what we need to be reaching if we are to transform them. So I'm going to stop here. There's slides that are self-explanatory. Does anybody want to, I'm just conscious, admin, we've come up to, mashallah, 9:45. I want to respect everybody's time. I've taken a lot longer on the theory, which I didn't really want to do, but as you can see, these are very detailed topics. There's a couple of minutes left. Does anybody want to give me a question? Any questions? If I can just invite anybody to give a question. Okay. Sorry. Please comment on Sister Zainab on developing good self-esteem, in kids, especially when a parent lacks confidence. Okay, this is really important. Thank you so much for raising that. Okay, question for you. How does the skier fit in? Okay, okay, very good. These are very good questions. Okay, rather than going on, I think I'll take there's a few more comments before, so apologies if I've gone back to front. Okay, there's lots of questions, mashallah, coming through. Okay, in the Q&A section. Yes, I'm in the Q&A section. Okay, so let me just take 1 or 2 questions here, and then Salah time is coming up, so I'm just looking at the time. We are, sorry guys, 60 seconds away from thingy. First question, let's take this one, inshallah. How does the skier fit in? A question to you by the student. Okay. Okay, so what did I say about the skier? So let me go back to that slide about how does the skier fit into all of this? Okay, so if you look at your Ta'aleem, Tarbiyyah and Tahdheeb, okay, if you've understood that when do we look at the process of learning, what do we give them in terms of technical knowledge, what are we trying to output in terms of actions or etiquettes? Tazkiyah is what? Is polishing, refining, purifying, sanctifying. Okay, this thing now, tazkiyah is about, in ta'aleem, I think one of the best things of doing tazkiyah of your team, firstly, obviously we need to have intentions, sincerity. We're not learning for arrogance. We're not, those kind of things are really, really important. So you need to take audit and stock of what you are learning, why you are learning. When you are learning something, so that's one thing. When you are learning something, how do you understand that? And what does that lead you to do? What's that opinion? So if you're learning about God, for example, the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how are you translating that into ibadat or aqidah or qaid, your beliefs and practices? How are you transforming that into action? So if you're learning about salah, you've learned salah to refine and polish your understanding of the ilm. Firstly, is it correct? Is it authentic? Okay. Are you understanding it? So you're not just knowing, but are you understanding it deeply? This is now moving to Tarbiyyah. Are you reflecting on it? Are you remembering it at the times when you need to remember it? So for example, for Salah is Fard 5 times. Maghrib is approaching. You know that you've got to pray Asr before the sun sets in, at least 20 minutes before. It's not in makruh time. So you know all the principles of knowledge. Are you refining your knowledge in a way that basically allows you to sincerely act upon it or understand it or apply it? That's in ta'aleem, and there's many, many tazkiyah points that you can look at ta'aleem. In terms of actions, if you've done actions, again, actions, they only will be accepted and they only will benefit us if they're done sincerely for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a tazkiyah, for example, in an action is, if I'm going to give charity now, have I got the right intention to give that charity? When I'm giving that charity, am I giving, for example, if I'm giving zakat, have I calculated my zakat correctly? Am I giving it to the right people, the right recipients? Am I giving it at the right time? There's so many ways of purifying or refining, or polishing your character, your actions, your understanding, your knowledge in a way. So I hope that's a very top level sort of answer. Many other people can, in terms of giving you tazkiyah. Tazkiyah is something that we should be doing regularly in terms of polishing, sharpening the soul. Mashallah, a lot of the practicing brothers and sisters will tell you that a good Muslim, a conscious Muslim, is the one that does tazkiyah on a regular basis, daily basis, if not throughout the day, certainly 5-10 minutes before you sleep, right? About what you've done today and what you haven't done today. How could you do it better? These are the moments of tazkiyah. I don't know if I've got time for one more question. Admin, tell me if I have, please. Mashallah, they're really good questions, and I would love to take some more time on this, and there's so much to give you guys yet. Admin, please comment on developing good self-esteem in kids, especially when a parent lacks confidence. Okay, guys, I'm just conscious that we have, I'm really sorry about this. Okay, I'm looking at the Q&A section, and there are questions there, mashallah. I think I'm looking at the Q&A section, alhamdulillah. Let me just go back up to Q&A. Okay, so one question about the name of the program is for the speaker, sorry. The name of the program I'm referring to, I think that's what you're asking about, is ilm to amal, knowledge to action. And basically, inshallah, towards the end of this, if you can all come back, this is the hook line. If you can all come back towards the end of the program, inshallah, I hope to get to the station on trying to demonstrate everything I'm talking about here. You know, I think that's really important, having the opportunity to be able to show you everything that we're talking about. That is not blue sky thinking. It's not, you know, me, some geek who's sitting in the north of England, passionate about character education and philosophies and Greek philosophies and Ghazali, Aristotelian stuff. I'm not doing that. I'm not here to wax lyrical. We really need to understand our children, and I want to be able to demonstrate that to you, inshallah ta'ala, in concepts that have come into fruition over the last 10 years, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, so I think it's very important that I honor the agreement with my organizers, inshallah, and stop here and pause for salah. Admin, how long would you like to give for salah? Shall we say 10, 15 minutes and be back here for 10 o'clock? So it's already 10 minutes. We're 10 minutes into it. So if we can pray our fard and come back, inshallah, for 10 o'clock. I think 10 minutes, inshallah, that's what admin is saying. 10 minutes for salah, brothers and sisters. Mashallah, there's 82 of you, right, that were on here. And I know your names, and I want to see all of you back here in 10 minutes, inshallah ta'ala. Make sure you pray salah with khushu' khudu. Inshallah, I will see you very, very soon. Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, welcome back from the salah break. So I hope, inshallah, everybody is okay to start again. I only have a crisp 30 minutes, barely 20 minutes actually, to get through the remainder of the slides. And then, inshallah, I'll try to ring fence 10 minutes for the Q&A. Some amazing questions I've just seen in the interim, and I would love to you know, have time to go through them. But unfortunately, there's a lot to get through. So what I will try to do is I'll try my best to get through as much as I can, and I'll try to ring fence around about 10:20 the time for Q&A, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, so I'm just going to put on the back onto the presentation. If you can get started again. I hope that was fine, inshallah. I've just read briefly some of the comments, and alhamdulillah, some positive comments about the content and some of the stuff coming through. And hopefully I'm not going too fast, inshallah. There is a lot to get through, and it is that time of the night. But the most important thing, folks, is not to overload you with information. I don't want this to be overwhelming. You know, this could be done easily over a few sessions. But without further ado, inshallah, if everybody's back to crack on. Mashallah, 62 people back. That's not bad. Alhamdulillah. Maybe some others will no doubt be taking a little bit more time to get back. So we've looked at the notion of character education, and I think that there's a reason why we needed to invest that time at the beginning, is because it's quite misunderstood. People, in short, confuse, and I'm talking even scholars I've come across in training up and down this country, mashallah, all of my beautiful brothers and sisters that I love dearly, and they love me dearly. There seems to be a misunderstanding through the institutes on the notion of character and akhlaq. And what I mean by misunderstanding is a conflation with another notion, which is adab, which we were talking about, you know, between Tarbiyyah and 𝐷e, in terms of etiquettes and behavioral stuff. So not confusing the inner akhlaq dimensions with the outer. Of course, they're very closely connected. One feeds the other, but we mustn't conflate the two. And this causes a big problem when you're trying to reform a child or mold a child. If you're focusing on the outward and the problem lies on the inward, you're not gonna get the results that you want. So see where I'm coming from. Moving on. Why is all of this important? What's the connection with character, values? Why can't we just teach them Quran? Why can't we just teach them fiqh and seerah? The most important things. Why can't we just do those things? Why do we have to mess around with arts and crafts and, you know, sports and basically discussion and reflection and story times? And why do you have to make learning so fun and cool? Well, brothers and sisters, you may or you may not be aware. There is a big identity crisis that takes place in lots of people, not just the young, but also the old. Okay, every one of us have some sort of crisis, or the plural crisis. I've been through so many, survived by the, you know, I've narrowly survived, you know, those identity crises, and it's an experience. You live through it as a Muslim living in the West. And I want to just very quickly touch upon this. I think this is really, really important. And I'm not making this up, brothers and sisters, honestly. This is important to get this slide. This is the most important slide for me, is that everything that we do, whether you teach Quran, whether you teach Arabic du'as or tayammum, or whether you teach them character and values, has to be rooted in the roots of what gives strong identity formation. Because from them roots is going to come everything else, the fruits, the branches, the tree trunk, the branches, and the fruits. And our identity crisis, this is a 3-hour seminar on this one slide alone. But I'm just going to mention 3 things that is at the root of identity crisis. And this is not just made up stuff. This is all of the philosophers, the scientists, the psychologists will talk to you, Muslim and mainstream, that will talk to you about the roots of an identity crisis. It's really down to a lack of purpose or a sense of purpose in life, lack of belonging, which leads and stems from a lack of purpose, and a lack of responsibility. Now, I know that's way too heavy to take in, digest after a salah break at 10 o'clock at night on a Wednesday afternoon in a pandemic. All right? But an identity crisis at the root, if we can get 3 things right, which are restoring, rekindling the sense of purpose in our children, giving them a sense of belonging, or nurturing, or letting them find a sense of belonging, to be part of the community they live in, along with the duty to serve, a responsibility. These 3 things, purpose, belonging, responsibility, inshallah ta'ala, I'm pretty confident, and I'm going to demonstrate to you in due course, you will crack open the child. And a sister asked something about how do you, I think it was a sister who asked the question that how do you nurture the self-esteem of children, which is really important when you yourself lack confidence. Inshallah, sister, you will develop your confidence. You have to develop your confidence, and it will come with time. And you're on the same journey. You're asking the same question for yourself that you're for your children. The dilemma is the same, because both need confidence in themselves. And how do you basically nurture the confidence in each other? And that is actually a beautiful thing, because you're in the same process. You're in the same boat with your children in developing that, tackling that dilemma. So at the heart of it, sister, it comes down to these 3 things. If you can understand the purpose, in theory, I'm going to come on to how do you bring that into life in reality, in practice, inshallah. So if you can understand restoring and understanding a sense of purpose, something greater. I'm going to pass through this because unfortunately I don't have time. I had some 3 key questions for you as parents and for educators in your life, right? These are the key questions that I would have. Does the Islamic education that Muslim students receive either at home or in the maktab or in schools help them to develop a sense of purpose in life? If it does, Mubarak. If it doesn't, that's where you need to start, okay? And ultimately, this is where we've got to basically get to the root first. From this question comes the next one. To what extent are Muslim educators and parents helping our young Muslims to confidently engage with and find a sense of belonging in their respective communities, whether you're in Eastern European or African, Sahara Desert, whether you're in Bradford, Pakistan, Musa saying, or in Bradistan, or you're here in where I live, it doesn't matter. The most important thing is the cultural identity, along with the faith identity, is really important. They've got to understand how they fit into the surroundings, especially for Muslims like us living in the West, where we're the minorities, okay? We've got to understand to what extent is our education in the maktab, in the madrasa. I know they're not set up for this stuff. The maktab and the makatib, they really were set up as Quran schools, okay? And that was 200-300 years ago, 400 years ago, 500-600 years ago. We are here today now, and let's face it, these children are coming to our institutes, right, for tarbiyyah that should be done at home. And that's why I think this seminar is really important, because we are now forced to do the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted us to do anyway, which was to take the tarbiyyah of our own children and not outsource it to cheap babysitter Maulvi Sahab in the maktabs, for £10 a week. Seriously, okay? Number 3, Muslim educators and parents, are we effectively nurturing the skills? In other words, the capacity for them to develop a sense of responsibility so that they could go out and serve. society put the learning into action? And these, I think, are really, really important questions, brothers and sisters. I could go on. Like I said, these are the 2-3 most important slides for me as to why we need to go back to the basics and review. If anybody wants to review a syllabus, review them on these 3 questions. Sense of purpose. Does it give them a sense of purpose? What kind of sense of purpose? Does it give them a sense of belonging? Does it give them a sense of responsibility? If so, how? So moving on to part 2, really, about transforming a child or transforming the whole child. Again, I'm going to speed up a little bit here. This concept of the whole child really is about what Imam Ghazali, rahimahullah, would talk about in his 𝐀𝐜𝐚𝐥𝐚𝐿𝐻 Ulumuddin, which is basically the spiritual sciences, looking at a 4-dimensional approach to developing a human. It's not just focusing on the mind. Schools are hell-bent on intellectual development only. Okay, they will talk about spiritual, moral, social, cultural. Trust me, after working with hundreds of schools and sitting in the back of the classroom and watching them, all of those are tick boxes. Really, this is my own personal criticism of schools, okay? They do some amazing stuff, no doubt. But in the scheme of things, really what they're there for is the intellectual development of that miskin child. Intellectual development is important, but it's not the only thing. The mind, yes, the mind is really important. We need to create thinkers. We need to critical thinkers. We need to create people who are wise, mashallah. But that's not the only thing. Go back to what Imam Ghazali rahimahullah said, which is about the heart. And we need to focus on the emotional well-being, on those skills around courage and resilience and moderation, and those kind of things we need to focus on in terms of the heart. So the mind and the heart need to be aligned. The soul, for those who believe that there is a soul, okay, we do as Muslims, the ruh needs basically nourishing, and we've got to focus on the spiritual aspects of things. All right, so spiritual development. And then we have the body, the physical. Okay, so also then becomes cultural. It also is part of the culture. So mind, heart, body, and soul. 4 things. If you look at those things from an Islamic sciences perspective, right, that leads us to look at 7 areas. I mean, I've called it 7D rather than 1D or 3D or 5D. 7D, development of humans. And this is not just children. This is every adult. You know, as an employer, I look at developing our staff members on 7D. And those 7 things that you can see in front of you, there's an acronym called 𝐻𝐸𝐵𝑆𝑖𝑐𝑠, you know, thanks to my great teacher and mentor, Ustadh Waquas Ali. May Allah be pleased with him, and may Allah protect him and give him a lot of barakah in his life, inshallah, and health. 𝐻𝐸𝐵𝑆𝑖𝑐𝑠 is what we've come up with, and that's basically moral, spiritual, physical, intellectual, cultural, emotional, and social development. So it's not just SMSC. SMSC misses emotional anyway. 𝐻𝐸𝐵𝑆�ICs, or moral spices, right, are the 7 areas that you can see, which is, you know, you can see that in the Dawah Tawheedi framework, you can see that in the Abu Hanifa one, holistic education. This is the 7 areas of human development, brothers and sisters, that we need to look at our children and ourselves and think, are we developing in a balanced way in all these 7 areas, right? Schools will tend to focus, I'm not saying they don't focus on other things, largely speaking, but mainly intellectual development. If you go to the maktab madrasas and the khankas and basically into our Darul Ulooms, largely speaking, which one? Spiritual, okay? And a bit of intellectual, and maybe moral, okay? I'm talking about the whole, and that might not be a fair criticism, it's just an observation, it's a light opinion. Don't please have mercy on the servant. I'm a friend, not an enemy. 7 areas that we would like to, I would say that we need to, so we look at whole deen being the 5 areas, not neglecting hukuk al-ibad, i.e. character, money matters, social responsibility. That's one thing. Second thing is that we need to now marry that up against about developing the whole child, not just intellectual development or just the spiritual development. We need the moral, the physical, intellectual, cultural, emotional, and social development. If you've all understood that, inshallah ta'ala, I hope you have. That takes us to the next bit, which is, again, I don't have time to basically look at this, but I'm going to whiz through this and get to this slide here. I think most of you will be aware of the learning pyramid, okay? And the difference between what we call active learning and traditional passive learning. In other words, the things that we used to do very old school, and that's what we all had, and that's how we thought, and that's how we used to work. This is all about how do we retain information, or how do we transform the information that we receive. In other words, how can we make learning stick? Okay, so that we still remember it when we need it. And it doesn't just, hover around in our brains for 60 minutes, and then when the class bell goes or the maktab bell goes, we're off and it's gone, washed away. Active and traditional ways. And again, I'm not going to go into too much detail. You can find the stuff, mashallah, on the internet, and lots and lots of theories around this. This is not to be taken lightly. This is actually quite good stuff. And this is, I've seen this and we've implemented this really, really quite detailed. It works. It really works. There's a lot of psychology, a lot of science gone into this. Reading, audiovisual, demonstration, the lower end, lecturing, this kind of stuff is basically, the retention rate is very low. Below, you can see there on the screen, 30%, okay? Less than that. But if you look at from active, the shaded area, discussion, practice by doing, in other words, giving them an experience or getting them to teach others. So what they take in, get them to teach others and let them become the teacher so that they can deconstruct and reconstruct, construct again concepts and use their creativity for immediate use. This is where now you start getting into the higher order of learning and critical thinking and experiencing and romancing with the information that you're actually receiving and deeply internalizing it. And if you look at if you want to look at the delivery mechanism or the delivery evaluation of our syllabi, our experiences, whether you're sitting at home and you're trying to nurture your children, do you just leave them do you lecture them? Do you just give them something to read? Are you talking to them by sitting in front of them, having a conversation? How much discussion is taking place in our homes, right? We take one small item and how much discussion is taking place, because if you have discussion, according to this, 50% of that will remain, it will stick. If you take a concept and give them an activity, crafts, arts, scientific stuff, right? An amal, an action, learn about homelessness, go and feed the homeless. Learn about cleanliness, go and clean the streets or your bedrooms, right? Learn about the elderly, go and honor your elders, respect. If you put those character virtues into an activity, and the more we do of this, up to 75, 80% is retained because we remember the experiences. Bet you anything. Think about the best thing that you ever remember from school. What was it? And I bet you anything you're going to say things like experiences, trips, right? Those kind of things that you did, pranks that you played on your friends, right? All that kind of stuff. And the most important thing is actually when we become responsible for the information that we have and we retain that, and we have to teach that. Even if you don't know it, it's a concept known as teaching to learn. I'm going to move on to part 3. So I've covered in part 2 very quickly, and I apologize for the swiftness. Whole child and then transformational learning. This is what we understand by transformational learning, is when you put learning into practice. And the objective of learning is to practice. The best way to practice what you learn is to learn through practice. I'll say that again because it's a bit of a mouthful, and it's 10:20. The objective of learning for a believer is to practice, to convert learning into practice, so that those actions which take us near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. True? Yes? The best way to learn to practice is to practice through learning, or in other words, to learn through practice. And again, a critical question for our makatib, for our parents, for our teachers, for our educationalists, our syllabi, curriculum developers. How much experience is there inside of our syllabus? How much experience is there inside of our maktab? If they're sitting there, rote learning, which has its benefits, mashallah, tabarakallah, I'm not against that. But if that's all they're doing, sitting and learning and learning and learning and learning and memorization, then do not be shocked when they don't remember that when they leave maktab, or even that day. So, brothers and sisters, my dear respected parents who are listening to this, I'm going to very quickly, inshallah ta'ala, give you 6 tips, and I'm going to mention these, and I'm conscious of the time, and I'll stop. And I think people want to know more anecdotes about how I work with my children, because they are the guinea lambs. I like to call them, not pigs, they're lambs, okay? See, Musa's now, he's come to life now all of a sudden. It just took one little cheap joke to get him active, right? They're my guinea lambs who are test and pilot on, and sometimes it works and sometimes it goes terribly wrong. Look at this triangle here, and by the way, I'm not part of the Illuminati, but basically this triangle would summarize, this is how traditional learning or the hierarchy of society works, right? Where we see the Murabbi at the top, mum and dad, could be the teachers, okay? The child at the bottom, and everything is what we call top down, and in the middle we have something, the learning culture and environment, and some people don't even have that. I just number this in a different way because I want to focus on my 6 points or my 6 tips on 6 areas, starting 2 with the child, 2 with the Murabbi in that order, and then with the learning and cultural environment. And these are, I'm going to rattle through them again, please forgive me. Number 1, know your child. Understand before you seek to be understood. This is something that Stephen Covey in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People quotes, and I think is a really remarkable notion or a concept that in psychology that has come to us through Stephen Covey's work, mashallah. Understand before you seek to be understood. So go back to what I was saying to you. Before you even shoot to your ideal list of the values that you want to put into your children, pump into them, before you even go into the technical stuff and all of the amazing, shebang, right? Before you do any of that, prepare the ground. Understand the person, the beautiful creature in front of us, your child. Understand your child. And this is the number 1 thing I will say to you, brothers and sisters. Anybody ask me what kind of conversations I have with my child? But firstly, if you can answer these 2 questions, you will know exactly which buttons to push, which questions to ask, how to ask those questions, when to ask those questions. Okay, my son now is coming over here now because I think he's getting a realization that my dad is scientifically working on me, right? I'm now part of his pilot study and I need to work out what's that. He's doing that now. So know your child. So what type of child have you got? You need to carry out a psychometric testing, a personality assessment. I know it sounds really crazy, but trust me, you're not going to lose your children. They're not going to turn blue. They're not going to basically set on fire. Psychometric testing is halal, right? You can do this quite easily, and I'm going to show you how. You can do it for yourself as an adult, and you can do it for your child because of now sophisticated, mashallah, we've got children techniques that can basically do that, okay? Number 1 is what I'm trying to understand is understand the wiring of your child. You need to understand firstly what makes this thing in front of me tick or tick on or tick off. So how do I get through to this person? Why is he behaving in a certain way? Why is he not doing this? Or why is she doing this? Right? Psychometric testing. Okay. Number 2, discover the love language of your child. This is really important, right? How do we like love, to give love, receive love, and how do you like to give it, and how do you like to receive it? Again, this is not for just children only, this is for you as well, but I'm talking about your children. If you, brothers and sisters, honestly, the secret recipe, if you're asking me what's my number 1 tip, is this is why it's up there. Personality and love language. If you can work out, okay, the love language and the personality, introvert, extrovert, and I'll explain this to you. Again, this is very detailed. I'm going to go on to it very quickly. After you've done that to your children, go on to for each statement. Number 2, reflect back on yourself. Know yourself as a parent or a murabbi or a teacher. What's your parenting style? What's your own style? What's your own style of teaching? Are you a facilitator of learning? Are you Hitler, right? Who likes to lead, in the way that the old teachers used to lead. Not that I've got a problem with that, mashallah. I used to love that type of learning. But you know something? We've got to be really careful. You've heard that statement going around, attributed to Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, but Imam 𝐁𝐚𝐥𝐚𝐝 rahimahullah says that actually isn't from Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu. It's, but nonetheless, it's a very important statement, and it's important to our deen, and we should basically uphold that statement. That statement is what? Don't raise your children in a way or in a time that was for you, and that's not for them. In other words, the way we were raised, the time has changed. We've got to move on. So brothers and sisters, look at your own style. Is it teacher-led? Are you teaching or are you facilitating learning? There's a big Zameen Usman Farag, massive difference between the two. You need to be facilitators of learning. Sometimes you need to dive in and teach certain concepts, yes. Majority of the time, we need to be a guide on the side, not a sage on the stage. Remember that. Number 2, in that point, after so many studies, right, after so many evaluation studies, psychologists, psychometric analysts have all come down to understanding what is the best way to transform learning. What is the best way to transform human beings, in particular children? And you know what it is? Parents, there's no getting away from this. We have to be the models. We have to model the behavior, the values, the character, the isms, whatever you want to basically put into that child. You have to model it. And you have to model in a way that child sees that you're actually in the same position as I am. So the sister who was saying about confidence versus self-esteem, when you don't have it, but you want to put it into children, it's not a bad thing. Embrace that and let your children know that you basically are learning about confidence and self-esteem. And, you know, it's okay to make effort, make mistakes. And it's okay to start together. And it's okay to work together as long as we're buddies and we, you know, work together. So model the character and values that you want to see. And this is down to modeling. There's no getting away. We've got to be present. Moving on. This is really important. And this is what our elders would call mahol, or creating an environment that enables development, nurturing, growth. Now, if you go out and back to the example of the cultivator, and in the cultivator, you have a sapling, okay? You have your garden, for example. If you haven't taken care of your environment and you haven't created an environment that enables growth, you can spend £1 million on that seed. The environment is really important for the growth of our sapling, our seed, crops, and in our own homes as our children. So we've got to look at a positive culture, a positive learning environment, which is something that we need to create. And I wanted to really honestly go on to anecdotes of this stuff. So learning, as I mentioned to you, but we've got to create this thing about whatever we learn, we've got to practice. And the best way to learn is through practice, experiential learning, number 5. And number 6, this is really important, okay? It's halal to reward your children and yourself, okay? It's halal to reward them. Don't praise them too much, encourage them. Encourage versus praise deserves a lecture on its own. But reward your children with accountability. I'll explain this in the next 6 slides, guys. Okay, so there's a lot to take in of those 6 things. I've told you what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to very quickly mention some things. Get your pen and paper out, brothers and sisters, and start taking note of some things here. In the first tip about knowing your child personality type, what does that mean? There's something called Myers-Briggs. It's one of the best ones out there. It's not the only one out there, but take it with a pinch of salt. Largely speaking, it works. I'm talking to you now as a parent and also as an employer. I've tried this on 100 people, and I'm telling you there's truth in it, but take it with a pinch of salt, and it's how you apply, which is really important, right? There's personality types. It's based on Carl Jung's theory of human development and psychology, okay? And this is a personality type. What you can see in front of me is these codes, okay? Basically, look, what's in front of you is not the vaccination for COVID, all right? That's not the code or anything like that. This is just basically 16 personality types based on Carl Jung's theory, right, on 4 questions that are there. Are you outwardly or inwardly focused? Extroverted, yani, or introverted? How do you prefer to take an information, do you do it through your senses or your intuition? Are you a thinker or are you a feeler, right? Which one are you? Okay. Both, 1 or 2 are dominant. And how do you basically make judgments, or how do you prefer to live your outer life? Is it through judging, or are you perceiving? Now, all of that, trust me, I know it's gone over your head. What you need to do is you need to go as adults and high school children, anybody who's watching or anybody else who's got children in high school wants to be able to work out the wiring of their child and understand, why did my son just do that? And why is he not confident? Why is she not confident in doing presentations? Why is she blushing with anxiety, right? Why is my child in a shell? It's because probably the personality isn't what you thought it was. So get to psychometric testing for yourself as adults. It's good for you to work out. There's something called humanmetrics.com. I use this website. It's quite good. It's for the workplace, but also for the home, for relationships. It's quite good. That's for the adults. Now for children in primary school, younger children, I recommend something called www.iCould. If you're dyslexic like me, don't put iCloud.com because you're not going to end up on anything that's going to help you with your children. Okay, it's going to destroy your children. iCould.com, and it's called the buzz test. Take the buzz test. Basically, it's the same stuff on the left or right, in children form, and basically they do that in animal shapes and so forth, all right? You just might need to be careful there, because if you look at the second statement, it says what you're like as a boyfriend or a girlfriend, right? That's going to need some care around that. I didn't actually realize until I get into it and thinking, okay, I don't want my children at the age of 7 who are taking this test to get to that. So we want to look at that. But nonetheless, there is some goodness in this, brothers and sisters. And it's going to give you a starting point. Like I said, take it with a pinch of salt. So that's psychometric testing. Know your child's personality. Number 2, what did we say at tip 2? What's your self-love language? In other words, what does love mean to you? In what form does love take? Giving and taking. And this is for you as adults, and it's also for you as basically, for you as parents to understand. Now, this is from basically a chap called Dr. Gary Chapman from America, right? Top guy, mashallah. And he's basically come out with 5 love languages, okay? And you can go on to the website, 5lovelanguages.com, and then under the quizzes, it's actually quite good. Again, they have something for adults, for teens, single people, people in relationships, and also, importantly, for children. It's worth your children taking this test and sitting with them and trying to understand that, you know, as best as you can. But he's come out with 5 love languages. In other words, physical touch, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and words of affirmation, okay? And you don't just have one, you know, you have a dominant one, but you have these change all the time. It's actually hilarious. If you want to have some fun, right, do this with your grandparents. If your grandparents are alive, okay, or if you got nothing better to do and you know somebody in a nursing home, right, go and try this test on them. It's hilarious, okay? The grandmother, you know, I tried it. And the grandmother said to the grandfather, you know, over my 60 years, I've had all 5 love languages at different times of my age. And her husband, he says, you know me, after 60 years, I discovered that these 5 love languages, there's a 6th one. And I said, what's that? And he goes, love is a delusional state of mind. No such thing as love. And so, you know, you see amazing things in what they find as their dominant love language is different for different folks. But it's really important, and I think it's quite good to understand your child, what means to them. Because when you understand these 2 things, how they're wired and what makes them tick, right? What makes them feel valued. Wallahi, brothers and sisters, 80% of the work's done because you've now got the magic ingredient. You know exactly which buttons to push and when and how. And once you've got that understanding, I'm telling you, it works. And I see it with my children. Speak to my wife, good wife, sisters, you can speak to my good wife, right? The difference between the 2 of us is that she will spend 80% of her effort trying to get them to eat breakfast or broccoli. And you know, when she's exhausted, I'll walk in and she says, right, it's your turn. I've got no magic wand, and I'm not boasting, Allah beloved, forgive me, I'm not boasting here. My wife does amazing work. But because of this information I'm trying to tell you, it takes me 2 minutes. Musa, is that true or false? Can I get you to do things that your mummy can't? Jazakallah khair. Okay, the £5, more £5 over there. £5, yeah. That's £10 in total. Very good. Okay, right. So, brothers and sisters, are you a facilitator? So how is a facilitator different from a teacher? I'm not going to understand this now, but that's a question for you to think that. Are you a facilitator of learning, or are you a teacher? And I'm not saying teachers are bad, but you need to know what to do and when to do it. I don't have the time to go into this, but again, there's 4 types of known parenting styles, the main 4 types, okay? There's permissive, authoritative, authoritarian, uninvolved. Now, if you're Hitler, a Hitler mum or Hitler dad, you're basically authoritarian, all right? The Punisher, because I said so, right? If you're authoritative, you know, you're more like, it's a bit like Democrats, where you say, let's talk about this, okay? Let's basically, I have the authority, I'm in control, you know that I'm in control, but basically, let's have a conversation about that. And that's a very good parenting style to have at time where you're assertive, you know, you set the high expectations. This is really important. Are you permissive, where you're kind of a friend to them, and a bit, you know, basically some rules, but you let it go, you kind of laissez-faire? Are you completely absent and totally not involved? That's, you know, the point is, there's no one way of doing this. You need to understand when to apply situational leadership, when to apply a certain style, given the need, okay? And that's really, really important in terms of tip 3. So you need to know your own style. Are you a facilitator of learning? Are you a helicopter parent that stands over them? You need to understand the pros and cons of each approach. And again, brothers and sisters, this requires another presentation in itself. Something I'm very, very passionate about is reflective of this. We do residentials where we take parents, and it allows them to, you're not there just to build skills and character of children, but parents also start to reflect on their parenting style. I think this is really, really important on this point. There's no getting away from this, and there's a reason, brothers and dads out there, that the 3 pictures I've got there are all to do with fathers, okay? Modeling. There is no shortcut around this. If you want to develop amazing characteristics from the Quran and Sunnah, right, in your children, then seriously, you need to basically start modeling those things, whether it's brushing teeth, you know, getting dressed, or reading. And I'm going to say something very quickly here, right? You know, if you want to basically work your child out, or you want to, they're not listening to you, you want to take through a moral dilemma, or you want to get through them, for me, it works in 2 places. One is in swimming. As I mentioned before, I take them swimming because it's me and them in the deep end. And I am their trustworthy figure. Am I right, Musa? Okay. And if I want to have a one-to-one and Musa's undivided attention in this chaotic world out there that is basically, you know, tweet, gadget, you know, basically sound bites are very difficult to have. If I want to have my child's undivided attention, take him to the deep end where he can't swim. Please do this with care, because I don't want to be sued for this, right? This is what I do. Okay. Don't do what I just said, do that, because I don't want to be sued by Balagh and everybody else for basically giving some dangerous tips on this. No, genuinely, this is a key point here, okay? I take my children out of the comfort zone, and I take them in a zone where it's just me and them, and their trust in me rockets 1,000%. When I've got the undivided attention, I can talk to them. That happens usually in 2 places: swimming, or when at bedtime, when I in the spare bedroom, I want to basically get something really taught to them. I'll sit and write, come on guys, we're going to basically, you know, I'm going to put you to bed in that room there, but it's just going to be the 2 of us. At bedtime, it's story time or discussion time. That's the point. If I want to get something across to them that I've seen in the day, or I've seen a concern, or I want to mold them or get them ready for the next challenge, honestly, brothers and sisters, 15 minutes maximum, 10 minutes maximum, have it thought out, start with the story, make it up. Make it up, right? If you have to, fictional stories are okay, you know, make it up. You know, there was his father and he had a son who was 8 years old, and, you know, he was a skinny boy, and basically one day they wanted to, you make it up. Exactly, right? And they basically, you know, immediately be like, is that about me? You're like, no, of course it's not about you. Of course it's not about you, you know. Exactly, right? So this is about modeling and demonstrating to them. You can do that through story times. You can basically do that. But the most important thing I'm trying to say is, look, I think it's Benjamin Franklin who said that thing that if you teach me, I'll remember, right? If you involve me, then I'll lead, and I'll basically, you know, I'll mess that quote up completely, but, you know, it's about involving the children. If you show me, if you involve me, if you teach me, the most important thing is have your children involved with you. And if you sit there and do that, and I'll give you a very quick anecdote. If anybody's seen PE with Joe, okay, amazing guy, right? First day, my children after 10 minutes got bored. He's the guy who does a YouTube video on PE in 30 minutes every day. Got bored. Why did he get bored? Because daddy was too busy making breakfast and the children were left alone to get on with Joe. After 10 minutes, they did it because of conforming to what daddy wanted, but they saw that, hold on, dad's eating, you know, pizza for breakfast or whatever he's making at the time. Yeah, you know, we don't need to. So a friend of mine called me up and I was talking to him and he said, how about you joining with them tomorrow lesson? I thought, subhanAllah, I lecture about this all the time. Yeah, okay, you know what? Next day in my gym kit. Okay, right? And basically I was there early, and subhanallah, I'll tell you, you know, they carried on, and it's fantastic. So modeling and being involved is fantastic. I think it's really important. There's nothing more powerful than that, being the role model for them, because they look at you as the perfect being, and they look at everything that you do. And it's really important to do that. This is one of my favorite quotes about, whilst you do modeling, I think it's really important not to spoon feed the child. I'm getting messages, so I want to very quickly wrap up here. This is a very famous quote by a person called John W. Gardner, okay? One of my all-time favorites. Honestly, if you want to look, if you ask me after 10, 15 years, what is the single best thing that teachers and parents can do in transforming the child, or basically developing the self-esteem of the children, if they basically can, you know, do this. And honestly, it's not to spoon feed the child. Don't spoon feed the child. Change that culture, change that notion, reverse that triangle that I showed you that was top down. Put it up, and you're going to see why. Because he said, much education today, John W. Gardner said, education today is monumentally ineffective. And it really is, right, in places. Why? Because far too often, we are giving our children, right, cut flowers. Here you go, right? When actually what we should be doing is giving them the opportunities to go and grow their own plants. Okay? That's the number one problem. If you understand that, brothers and sisters, then you look at this. And this is the point I'm trying to make about tip 5. Remember how learning sticks. 90% is what they do. 70% of what they say or what they write. Okay, discussion. 50% is, you know, what they hear or see. So for example, TV. And then it goes lower and lower down to 5%, which is reading, okay, or lecturing. All right. So if you understand how learning sticks and you remember that, okay, this is now what I would like everybody here to do. And how many people are still here? MashaAllah, 74, fantastic. Flip, another tip. Honestly, these are huge strategies that I've had to learn the hard way. And alhamdulillah, after 10, 15 years of grafting away with myself, my team in silo, you know, basically getting things done. If I'm going to die in 3 weeks' time, I would like to impart this stuff to you as an amana, because I've seen this work in continents, across the continents. I've seen this work with the children from affluent families, children from disadvantaged backgrounds, rich and poor. I've seen this work with male and female, black and white. I've seen this work in Muslim, non-Muslim, mainstream. I've seen this work, wallahi, my team will tell you. I have seen this work time and time and time over again. And I just thought, I wish somebody had taught me this when I walked in 10, 15 years ago with a head start, but that's life. I'm handing this over to you now. Flip the learning round, the hierarchy, flip it around so that we create responsible learners, okay? Or we shift the responsibility onto the learners, which is what John W. Gardner is saying. Put the child in the top of in the driving seat and let the child drive the learning. This is a Montessori philosophy and the principles. We have just got to be responsible for creating the environment and being the facilitators that are present. Let the child lead. Let them explore. Let them make the mistakes. Let's ask them amazing questions. And inshallah ta'ala, you will see how they get on. So I'm just conscious of the time, and I've got my last tip, and then I want to basically maybe look at quick questions and then give signposts you to some other resources that are already, the hard work's been done for you. Okay. Last but not least is rewarding the effort. Now, I couldn't find a better picture to sum it up, and this does not need tafsir, okay? 3 things that you can see in front of you, saplings, and around standards, accountability, rewards. So someone asks, I've had this question asked me a number of times, how do you get the best out of your children? How do you motivate your children? I have 1 boy, 2 girls, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, Allah protect them, Allah embed in them the things that we're talking about, and may they become the models of this dawah for me first and foremost, otherwise I am stuffed. Yeah, everything else and for me fails. So make dua for them. Allah protect them from the evil eye and protect them and give me the tawfiq to walk the talk and everything we're saying here, inshallah, off the screen. Rewarding the effort, I've worked out this as an employer and I've applied it as a parent, and it's marvelous. Number 1, brothers and sisters, set the expectations and the standards. Set the goals for them, set the standards, the do's and don'ts, the parameters where they can go to. right? Set the standards for them, what they're going to achieve. And that for Muslims is very easy because we have the best of creation as our role model. We have the best book, mashallah, in terms of values and virtues and amazing stuff. I'm not saying any of the other books don't have any of that stuff. Of course, there's lots and lots of inspiration, you know, high value stuff, that basic high order stuff, divine stuff that we have in front of us to deduce standards, expectations, goals, aspirations, okay? More importantly, don't impose them on your children. Get them to work out those standards. Get them to define their own standards, their own aspirations. 1. 2, then put down the point about accountability, okay? And the Prophet ﷺ would do this amazingly. He would go to people, especially on the sickbed, and he would talk to them between Iman and hope. Sorry, hope and fear. Hope, he would build the Iman around hope and fear. We have virtues, fadail, and then we have consequences. Salah, for example. If you pray Salah, mashallah, you will get this. If you choose not to pray Salah, fine. This is the alternative, okay? This is what will happen. So an act has a virtue and it has a vice and it has consequences, okay? It has a reward and thing. So give them accountability, set the accountability to, and be consistent. Last but not least, as you can see, reward them more than the standards and the accountability. Reward them, and reward them according to their love languages. Now you see why I've taken you through all of that way to get to this point. If we can understand their value and we can understand what makes them tick, when the point comes to rewarding them, we can reward them appropriately. Trust me, a father who has this knowledge, a mother who has this knowledge of everything I've talked about and rewards them appropriately with 10 pence. For example, my child likes, you know, sweets, cola bottles, and I go out and spend 10 pence. Okay, I know you don't like cola bottles. I'm just using this as an example, yeah. 10 pence, one cola bottle, a bag of cola bottles, here you go. His love language is receiving gifts. And then you have another parent over there, mashallah, multimillionaire, reward them with, you know, a holiday, material things, whatever, okay? Thousands compared to this miskin 10 pence. But the love language of that person is not what the parents thought it was, and they bought something else. This child will feel more valued. This child will jump through fire hoops. This child will climb mountains. This child will listen to everything that you say. This child will move mountains for you. That's the difference, brothers and sisters, if you just understand our children and look at it from their perspective. Take a student-led approach. And I'm sorry I've taken a long time on this and I've gone way over. Forgive me on violating your rights. So bringing it back to character building resources and support for parents and educators. I mentioned an organization I'm affiliated with, and a lot of work has gone into that, and I can, you know, vouch strongly for that. The proof is in the pudding. Check it out for yourself. If you're a school or a madrasa and you want to see all of the hard work in terms of the character framework manifesting into resources that children love, they learn to love, live, and share their deen in a meaningful way that benefits them and the children and the society around them, all the hard work has been done for you in this. Honestly, I'm not here to sell this to you, but I'm just showing you that everything I spoke about, we have to be people of action, amal. We have to be people of substance. We have to have the prototypes in front of us. We don't come here to sing a song because we're good singers. We come here to sing a song because we have a song to sing. Okay, so my dear respected brothers, sisters, there's all this stuff, mashallah. Honestly, I don't know if this is coming out back to front on the screen, but just the smell of hard work and blood, sweat, and tears, you know, when as soon as I flip through that, right, it's amazing. The creativity, everything in there is all of that work. No, just so you know, that's not the yellow pages. I know it looks like the yellow pages. It's not the yellow pages, brothers and sisters. That is the character development syllabus I'm talking about for, you know, year 3 onwards. All of the hard work's been done for you. If you're interested in all that kind of stuff, info@amal.org. You can get more information and an application form for that. And I know right now madrasas and makatib and schools are not teaching. When we get back, join the hundreds of schools and 40,000 learners, mashallah, or maybe even more, that are going through this. When you see this, it will all make sense. All of the hard work has been done for you. Everything I have spoken about for the last 2 hours has been knitted together, so easy for you to come in and facilitate learning and let your children basically lead. I'm just going to look at the Q&A because is homeschooling how to incorporate values in the secular curriculum? How do you do that with children? Any book on this topic, please. I'm just talking about, I'm actually showing you now one of them here. So a couple of questions. I'm going to very quickly end on this. Okay, so there's lots of free resources for you to get. I did say to you about getting started, and this is all about, brothers and sisters, you now picking this stuff up, and now's the time to do it. Why are we waiting for 2021? We might not even see Ramadan at this stage. Okay, now is the time to basically get started. If you head over to 𝐀𝐚𝐥𝐚𝐝 i2astore.com, that's the 𝐀𝐚𝐥𝐚𝐝 basically portal where they have the resources. Okay, here you can see. Children's books and free resources, okay? This one here, particularly, brothers and sisters, I've not got them in front of me, but it's self-explanatory. You can go on there, have a look at it. Alhamdulillah, what our team has done here is basically taken resources around mental health, character education, resilience, emotional well-being, rights of the neighbors, basically looking at the hukuk al-ibad areas that are often neglected or undertaught, and made them into simple toolkits that you as parents at home, right, during this pandemic can basically easily pick up, download, print, or just off the tablet, deliver as a facilitator to your children in the comforts of your home. I tell you, inshallah, and I really hope they will love you for it. Your children will love you for it, because everything I've talked about in philosophy, strategy, and all that kind of stuff, it's the ingredient is in the proof is in the concept, in the product. And if they don't, you're deliberately wrong. I have 150% conviction in my team members, okay, that they have done their best to get this right, and they've tested and piloted on everybody. If it's not working, the delivery needs introspection. It's in the delivery that's the issue. That's the main thing, okay? So there's plenty of children books that have come out. There's two main ones at the moment that basically I'm referring to, okay? I'm going to very quickly move on to, I'm just going to run through here. There's character building packs. They're practical, they're fun, they're engaging activities. You can see them there, okay? Something around healthy life, community, response. There's a whole array of things that have been made free of charge. These are high quality stuff. I'm not talking about basic stuff of coloring in and all that stuff, mashallah, which is fantastic to have resources like that. When you see this, you'll understand how much hard work has gone in over the years. Allah bless our donors and trustees and workers and everybody who's basically done that at 𝐀𝐚𝐴. You can pick these downloads and get started, and it's going to cost you nothing. You just have to register your details, put some details into the system, and you get it free of charge, zero, nil, nada. Basically, costs you absolutely nothing. Get started and drop us some feedback on how we can improve it. We've also prepared well-being learning packs. So these are character development ones. These are well-being packs. You can look at mental health, dealing with stress, keeping fit. All of these available, free download, i2astore.com. Now, storybooks. Okay. Before this pandemic, a lot of parents got in touch and said, why is 𝐀𝐴? These are parents of children who were learning 𝐀𝐴 in the classroom. Phenomenal feedback. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Question. How can we not just rely on the 1 hour, 2 hours in the classroom? How can we now take lead? Alhamdulillah. How can we lead as parents? We don't want to just be engaged. We want to be leading as a murabbi, because on Yawm al-Qiyamah, that child in front of me is the one I'm going to be asked about, and they're going to ask him or her about basically, Ibn Muhammad ibn Waqas, right? Binti Waqas, right? They're not going to ask him about Binti Moli Sahab or Ibn Moli Sahab or, student. They're going to ask, and I need to basically take the responsibility. So what we've done is we came out with 2 storybooks. One was called The Flying Carpet, and the other one is called The Flying Carpet, and the other one's called My Brother's Shield. I've got actually this activity book in front of me, okay? Now, you've got the story, you've got the activity book, and you've got the coloring book that goes with it. And this is between the age ranges of 3 to 7, some have said, 9-year-olds are delivering it absolutely fine. You've got storybooks on there. These are paid resources, by the way. If you don't you want to go a little bit more advanced, more structured, more tangible in the hands, something more detailed, alhamdulillah, you can order your copy from there, both the activity and the coloring books on iTunes store. I really want to mention one thing before I just open up and take the questions and answers, because I'm conscious of time, is we're running a Ramadan competition. And this is amazing because we've just done a test pilot of a competition. So this one is to do with Ramadan. The competition that we've run to date or experimented with in the last 2 weeks has been the one to do with Salah, the flying carpet, the book on the flying carpet. And we did a live story reading every Saturday morning, 10 o'clock YouTube on 𝐁𝐚𝐿 Live. We do a story reading. And the response globally has been phenomenal. We've received over 100, right, carpets, what we call musallas, right? So people say to me, Waqas, how do I get my child to love Salah? Like without the stick and without basically the danda, right? And without giving them an under. How do I get them to love Salah, right? Without forcing them. And it's a really important question, really, really important question. And it worried me when I was a single man and, you know, used to think about this, how do I do that if I ever had children? Alhamdulillah, I have children now. And Musa sat behind the screen, and honestly, I don't have to, may Allah protect him and protect us all, I don't have to make the effort to do that, because it goes back to that understanding and the value and setting the standards and those kind of things where they do that. And here, if you see the parents of the children who have sent in their musalla. So we read the story about Anas and Anisa, that's the brother and sister that you see there, who are journeying through, and you know, they're getting to experience Salah more than a ritual act, but actually a journey, the miraj of a mu'min, you know, the fire-breathing shaitan dragon there, okay? And then the same thing happens with them in Ramadan, fasting is a shield, as in Bukhari, the hadith of Prophet ﷺ. We've come up with that competition that we had on Salah, the magic carpet, we received over 100, and I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, the creativity of those carpets, when you see those prayer mats, will blow you away. And what's even more mind-blowing is the feedback that we received from mothers and sisters and fathers of children saying that I can't get my child to stop making another carpet. I can't get them off the musalla. I can't get them to stop building dens. I can't, it's a genuine feedback, not to boast, but to give you reassurance that if we apply these techniques, 80% of the work, if you understand the child 80%, we only need to make 20% of the effort, right? 20% of your effort, inshallah ta'ala, with the help and support of organizations like 𝐁𝐚𝐿, there's many, many more out there, honestly too many to mention, right, that have done the hard work for you, right? They will inspire the sense of purpose. Remember what I said it was about? Purpose, belonging, and responsibility. The purpose of, they'll understand the purpose of Salah. They'll understand the belonging and the connection to, and the emotional connection and belonging to the masjid or the Salah or the family that prays Salah. And they'll take the responsibility independently of you. Sometimes, to begin with, you might need to be there to, you know, give them the reminders, like I do with Musa, right? Now and again. But one or two trigger points, the adhan going off, me just standing there, not saying anything, and then you just crack on, and subhanAllah, they will take the responsibility. And over time, before you know it, they won't need you, they'll start again. There's a number of things like this. And this is the exciting Ramadan competition that I wanted to talk to you about. That was one that we piloted on, it's been phenomenal. This one is to do with a superhero training camp, which is basically between Adam and Anisa, as you can see on the screen. All of this information is available on i2astore.com. It's 30 bite-sized activities, deeds, and regular daily challenges. It's all there, you know, how to take part. There is a book. This is a book, okay? I'm just going to show you something that is not thin air that I'm basically talking about. You know, people have taken this, mothers and fathers, they've actually sent some reviews. Don't take my word for it. What you can see here in the opening pages is 30 character strengths or badges that they have to work towards. The first one, I don't think you can see it, but is basically confidence, okay? That's a character strength. Love, perspective, empathy, God consciousness. Somebody said about God consciousness. How do you develop that? Okay? You know, care, adl, justice, self-belief, self-esteem, honesty, eloquence, curiosity, compassion, reflection, balance, hard work, resilience, trustworthiness. Somebody mentioned that. Responsibility. Somebody mentioned that. Respect, ambition, and it goes on and on and on. I think something like 99 or 100 character strengths in the framework that 𝐁𝐴 have, that they're developing lessons built around, sometimes in the form of an activity book or a storybook or a coloring book, or in a full-blown lesson or in a forest schooling 2-hour experience, or a half-day storytelling experience in the sticks around a campfire. It's amazing. But this is a competition in front of us. If you want to keep your children engaged, stimulated, motivated around Ramadan, then seriously, brothers and sisters, mashallah, you can pick this up. The book, it doesn't cost much. It's on the website. You got to get that book, and there's a promo code actually that I would like to give you, which will give you 15% off. And this is especially for this webinar here. They were very kindly, the authors, to basically give me this. If you can see here, there's a promo code here. Actually, this offer runs out tomorrow prior to this webinar. But if you put in webinar 1, spellings there, okay, into the website and the promotional codes, inshallah ta'ala, you will see, you will get 15% off. And this has been extended for you, the people on this webinar, until Sunday midnight. Okay, once you get that book, it's only, I don't know how much it is, but it's basically, you will get this activity book or the storybook, a bundle. Excellent value for money. What you will see there, brothers and sisters, is that will, your blueprint is in front of you, it's there for you. You've got to get in before Ramadan, ideally. And every day, it's all explained to you on the slide there that, you know, basically there's step 1, 2, 3, 4, what you've got to do. And every day your child will have to do something and send in this stuff. It's a competition, of course, it's a competition. The prizes have been gifted to us, mashallah, up to £300 worth of stuff. There's 1, 2, 3 positions to do that. So there's a challenge there of Ramadan, keeping our children engaged in the deeds of sadaqah, creative arts, activities, a multitude of different types of activities that they have to do around the house that have already been done for you. But if you don't want this, there's plenty of, you know, free resources for you to pick up and start delivering it. I just think this is something that I'm doing with my children, and I wish it for you. I think it's fantastic. So really bringing it to a close, if you want to download any of the activities, the resources that I mentioned, there's a blog where we're going to be populating training tips. All of this stuff really needs to be blogged. There's i2astore.com, or you can follow on YouTube or Instagram at 𝐁𝐚𝐿𝐿 @𝐿𝐿. So you've got it there, inshallah. Thank you for listening. I'm really sorry I've gone over time, and you know, I can't see anybody yawning, and that's why I've carried on. So, you know, forgive me if that's been too long, inshallah. I hope that's been useful. Musa is still kicking, live and kicking, mashallah, so I think he's enjoyed it. You enjoyed it? Yeah, thumbs up, mashallah. He looks like he's fresh. I think he can do another 6 hours, to be honest. Okay, so how to incorporate values in secular curriculum. So I want to say Jazakumullah khairan to everybody at this stage, okay? I think it's only fair that I will stop rambling on, and anybody who's got feedback for me, or anybody who wants to do this, you can actually email info@ilmtomal.org. Honestly, we are a community-driven organization. We don't have an ego. We love your feedback, no matter how bitter or not, how critical it is. We have to demonstrate akhlaq first and foremost before we put that into other children. Drop it you can take my personal email address if you want. You know, so Balagh will get in touch with me, whoever wants to get in touch with me. I think it's really important that we, you know, we bounce off the feedback that we've got here, because there needs to be more of this online training, we need to reach more and more people in the work that's taking place. It is phenomenal, take my word for it, inshallah ta'ala. I think you won't be disappointed. The proof is in the pudding, but we are learning, we're on a long curve. We've got many, you know, a long way to go, in other words. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us many, more years in these difficult times. It's very difficult for the sustainability of any organization. Please, all I would say to you is make dua, first and foremost for forgive me, or, you know, make dua for me, my family, my children. We are easily judged by not what we do or the products we produce, but by the children that we, you know, nurture. And you know, I really ask you guys to make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep these guys steadfast, all of our children, not just mine. Make dua for the team, make dua for the amazing brothers and sisters, the donors, supporters, trustees, everybody who's working at the organization to bring all of the difficult concepts into easy pick up stuff for you. And trust me, it takes a lot of time. And last but not least, I would like to thank the amazing team of Balagh, right from the top to the bottom, to everybody who's facilitated this and made it easy for me. They're doing an amazing job. And honestly, they were well ahead of the curve from what I've seen in terms of online learning. And here, you know, in the pandemic, mashallah, it's no surprise that they're the ones who are leading quite a lot on this. But there are many, many organizations I haven't given a shout out to. I wanted to. National Hufaz Association, in terms of the Qiraat and stuff that they're doing, you know, An-Nasiha, Safar Publications, you know, there's lots and lots of more. There's amazing stuff happening out there, brothers and sisters. We're very blessed. You know, don't see this as a negative thing. Inshallah ta'ala, we're going to rise out of this pandemic as a better ummah. I really wholeheartedly believe that. We're going to rise, for those of us who survive, we are going to rise out of this as better parents. We're going to rise better out of this as better educators, better children, inshallah ta'ala. And we have to have that hope. Muslim never has, you know, loses hope, never despairs, falls into despair. We're going to rise out of this pandemic. You know, we're going to go back to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. We're going to learn, you know, we're going to reprioritize our most important things in our life. And inshallah ta'ala, I really pray and hope that we basically continue in the way we have done in this pandemic, of the priorities of the things that we're doing with our children, whether it's sitting together on the sufra, on the dastakhan and eating as a family, whether it's praying in jama'at together, leading the Dhuhr Salah on a Friday at home, whatever it is, whether it's spending more time with them, being present in conversations. Honestly, guys, we've got to, this is our training guide. There's a reason why this is happening to us. And I'm just conscious that, you know, this is a great opportunity in front of us, and I hope and pray that everything that's been shared with you so far, inshallah ta'ala, has been beneficial.